Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in YouTube land. I am Deleted Scenes, and I want to welcome you to the other side of midnight. The chat is jumping, so let's say hello. The one and only infamous Jedi Bill, Loyal Wrench, Connie Cleary, Keely Chow, Roll Tide, Plush Time TV, get well soon. Steely-eyed Missile Man, Stephen Bailey in the house. Friend of the channel and David Lynch aficionado, Troy Pacelli. Jesse, I'm sorry, I still can't pronounce your last name. Alright, good to see you, Jesse. Troy supplying us with the soundtrack of tonight's show. Keep the midnight references coming. And hello, Netters Network. Everybody's saying their hellos. All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Our special guest is waiting backstage. But before I bring him on, I want to once again acknowledge a loss in our community, in our fellowship. And that's our friend Gil Bavel, a.k.a. Cardinal Sin. I didn't know him very well, or as much as other people here. But he always encouraged me, and great guy, always had a kind word, and I'm going to miss him. And tonight's show is dedicated to him. All right, he's been waiting backstage, and I know you've been waiting to see him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Midnight's Edge After Dark himself, Tom Connors.
Or in the very least, hear me anyway. I don't know if I'm going to jump on camera too much tonight, but yeah. Evening, how's everybody doing? Sorry I'm late.
No problem, no problem. How many live streams have you done today? Altogether?
Started Mead Radio at 2 my time, and it's 11:30 now.
Wow. So yeah, you definitely earned a break there. As we were, as those of you who are fans of the show know, Tom was also on last week's show, and this is actually kind of funny. Tom was actually supposed to be on the show 2 weeks ago. And there's kind of a miscommunication, and I didn't send him the link. So that's why he didn't make the show. And then last week, Tom was on Culture Casino's Sunday night show, as he was tonight. That show ran a little over, so Tom had to kind of truncate his time on the show. But now, tonight, we finally got him for the duration. Take two, as Troy says. Technically, it's take three, but take two. I'll take that. And take two and call me in the morning. And yeah, So, and hello to Hakami. I still can't believe he passed. I can't either. I was very shocked by that news. I'm still trying to get my head around it myself. All right. So, this is something, Tom, that we went into a little bit last week, and now we kind of get the extended version of your. What were the beginnings of Mr. Tom Connors here prior and your beginning onto YouTube?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where we left off. I guess I know I
Yeah,
said we
we
talked a
we
little
kind of
bit
went
about.
a little all over the place. Yeah.
I think it kind of somewhere between because I remember talking about Andre giving me a call and
Mm-hmm.
coming on, and I mean at that time it was myself, Andre, Rob, and this other guy who was supposed to handle all the editing.
Mm-hmm.
And this other guy had some just seriously strange demands, and Andre and he parted ways fairly quickly. And at that point, we were kind of in need of a editor. So I'm like, well, I mean, I do um, I do kind of know some editing from school. I guess I can give it a shot. And from there, it was just kind of a whirlwind. And I think we talked a little bit about starting doing live streams and stuff like that because that was partially what I was brought on for the most part. Between that and a
Mm-hmm.
few other things besides that, I think we mentioned, and yeah, no, it just kind of took off from there, and just a lot of work later. Here we are. I mean, it really. I mean, sometimes it feels like yesterday that this all just started, and it's hard to believe that I was just looking at it like the 10-year anniversary. I think for Midnight's Edge is right around the corner. Um, my anniversary for working with Andre will be coming up here in a couple of years. I mean, here we are just this far into it. It's hard to believe that I've been doing this now for like 7 years, something like that, pretty much with Midnight's Edge. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, the time it definitely flies on here. And hello to Lester San Jose and Real Wade Nation Gaming Clips. Good to see you both. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know I've been around YouTube now uh, a couple of years. Just starting out, listening to some smaller channels, getting involved in the chat, and then eventually kind of getting sucked in through the fourth wall. And now here I am, and that time has definitely flown by. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I've even known
no,
you now for what, 3 years or so, close to it.
something like close to it now. Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, we met in the chats, and then when Midnight's had started doing the member streams, that's when I got on, and we finally got to talk, like this, face to face, so to speak, and
Yep.
that's one of the really cool things is that this is YouTube has really brought people from all around the world together. I've had people in my chats from as far away as India, so this is really a whole new meaning to reach out and touch someone. You could just literally speak to someone halfway around the globe, and
Yeah, it was kind of weird when I was on the radio to think about how many people I was broadcasting to, and now it's globally. It's just
yeah.
yeah, it's mind-boggling.
Lester says, I started getting into the space through retro blasting, then dots started connecting, then connecting. Very true. Um, I started out um, watching kind of these very. I started out watching like the channels that did like reaction videos, and I got to know a couple of those people, and then I really got close with some people on a channel called the Bad Movie Night podcast. Chris Rupert and the gang over there, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I actually found Midnight's Edge through them because it kept popping up on my queue every time I would watch one of their videos. A Midnight's Edge video would come up, and that was around the time of Trank Gate and Fan Four Stick. And I've kind of been there ever since.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
kinda when I found the channel too. I mean, I came on kind of post Ghostbusters, the beginning of Spider-Man era
Hmm.
there, but, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So, yeah. Um,
so I'm not sure what else. I mean, you're gonna have to be like, I guess you'll have to ask more specific questions. I mean, if you
yeah.
wanna get it, because like,
uh,
it's, you
yeah,
know,
because what I guess what I'm trying to get to is was that the same way for you? I mean, were you involved? Did you know anybody on YouTube before you knew Andre, or was Andre
um, not
kind of your first
really.
entry? Oh.
I mean, at least not, no, not that I can think of. Andre was kind of my plug-in, and that was where, I mean, I knew people outside of YouTube, but I didn't know anybody really on YouTube. But then, I mean, he kind of introduced me to a few people early on, and then from there, I just kind of got to know people jumping into streams, kind of just, you know, just getting to know folks. Early on, I mean, we knew Mr. H for a long time. Like, I think he already knew him
Hmm.
already when I had come on, for instance, and a few others, you know. But no, I just got to know a lot of those other guys, and Gary from Nerdrotic was somebody I talked to early on. I remember when he was still a pretty small channel. I just reach out to people sometimes and discuss stuff with them, and then eventually they'd find out who I am or whatever. Or they'd see me pop up in the chat, and sometimes that would start a rapport, or just reach out to people on Twitter. And I mean, at that time, like a lot of these guys, I mean, even Critical Drinker, for instance, um, I think Andre might have even known him. Well, maybe not. I think I maybe met him first, but I'm trying to remember exactly. But I thought one of us knew him, and like I'm saying, it's gotten so far in the past now. I forget sometimes where the connections come into who met who, and who introduced who to who. I mean, like I remember introducing like aka versus Babyface, to like Robert Meyer Burnett. I introduced Robert to a lot of people. Robert was another one where I just reached out to him, and I happened to be friends with people he knew, and it just worked out that way. You know what I mean? Like it just, again, it kind of worked the same way with how I knew people for my interviews and stuff, but it just, people that were kind of involved with YouTube, that people I looked up to. And Bill Hunt actually kind of also introduced me to Robert Meyer Burnett, if I remember right. Um, and that kind of helped because I knew him a little bit. And so yeah, it's just a matter of knowing people sometimes, and it's just kind of the way it goes. Kind of like, how pretty much anybody meets somebody, but yeah, it's just one thing leads to another. And at that time, I guess it was fortunate that we were kind of one of the bigger kids on the block. Um, Not that we're not now, but I mean we're definitely not, mainstream. But that's fine. Andre and I have always kind of looked at Midnight's Edge kind of like that cultish side of things. Not so much like to be a cult, but you know what I mean, like cult movie kind of side of things, like a little bit edgier, more of genre entertainment. Like he even got started, like Midnight's Edge actually started. I don't remember if I said this last week, but more so just to talk for him to talk about the Punisher and stuff like that, and Judge Dredd. It
Right.
wasn't until things like the Avengers and Fan Four Stick came into the fold that Andre and them Kevin decided to expand beyond those two, because some of their earlier videos, they were kind of more revolved around those two characters, and that was it. And Conan, I
Hmm.
think, or so, three or four characters, basically the darker, more violent, edgier comics, and that's kind of where the name came from too. But at the end of the day, it just, Andre had corporate knowledge, worked in financing prior to this, and I had business knowledge as far as like how the business side of things work, kind of more the creative side of things, the cultural politics there. He knew the more corporate politics. I knew kind of more of the culture politics. But things were changing at that time too, and that's where the woke came in, and it just really, so prior to the woke, I knew how a lot of shit worked, but after that, things were changing. But yeah, it just kind of worked out that way. And of course, we had Rob for a while, which
Hmm.
he had his talents, but sadly, he made his choices. But
Decided to part ways. Yeah.
yeah, he decided to part ways with us, basically,
He did.
through some
And
drama. Yeah.
yeah, it, all of my interactions with Rob, and I'm pretty sure Rob couldn't pick me out of a lineup, but my interactions with him were always kind of fairly friendly. Um, yeah, I remember this one time, and this was I don't know how many people remember this. This was during a member stream, and of course, as most conversations at that time uh, made it around, and sometimes still do, made it around to the subject of Kathleen Kennedy. And I was going to come out and say this, what I thought was going to be a brilliant statement about, how kings and queens tend to fall, and it tends to happen in house. And Rob is on, and he's kind of starting to lose his shit a little, you know. To which I threw out what I was going to say and went, "Why don't you just kill her?" you know. And I remember Andre was not very happy with me when I said that, but he got what I was trying to get at. But sometimes when you kind of what kind of watch somebody go off the deep end, and you kind of go off with them a little bit, in trying to chill them out, but you just go with them, and so that was kind of a funny moment. But I think I was apologizing to Andre for about a year for that, But yeah, that's a thing that's you have to kind of be careful with on YouTube, is that it's almost like you kind of got to be careful what you say sometimes, and it's like you never really know kind of what's going to upset the powers that be, and well, I was wondering, Tom, what your thoughts were on that. If you think YouTube kind of goes overboard on some of this stuff, or
Oh
if you think
yeah,
there
clearly.
needs to be, that they need to maybe set down a specific, a set of rules, because it's like it seems to change,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is
over
there's no
time.
real
It's like,
transparency in what
no.
is allowed, what isn't allowed. I mean, if they were a little bit more clear on these things, that would help. I mean, if they give us kind of even if they just said, look, just go by the standard of if it's allowed on network television, or if it's
Hmm.
allowed on cable, or if it's allowed on whatever. Because the other problem is here with YouTube is, unlike radio, where yeah, you have to deal with the FTC or FCC, I mean, and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. But at the same time, as long as you stay within parameters, you're fine. They give you those parameters for the most part. Here, you're kind of just at the whim of whatever they decide is what, and it can be, it's just so strange because I've said it a few times, but there's things that I could never say on the radio that I could say here, but there's things I could talk about all the time on the radio that I could never say on YouTube. And the strange thing is I just never could have expected those things that I can't say on YouTube to be those things, right? It's just insane. It's like, how can you not even just discuss news topics and other things? And I can't imagine what it's like for a YouTuber who's not even in the entertainment sphere, because to talk about some of these topics without basically being bombarded by every problem you have, somebody flagging you or complaining about you or what have you. It's just, your channel getting taken down or you're getting struck for some fucking reason. It's just insane. But like I just said the F word here, I can say fuck, fuck, fuck all day long. I couldn't say that on the
Yep.
radio, But if
Yeah.
you and I start talking about an event that, shut things down for a few years, let's say, we might get shut down if we're not too careful. So yeah.
Hmm. We do, which is why you start hearing phrases like, um, virus of unknown origins and stuff like
Right.
that, because just coming out and saying that particular C word, could get you knocked off the air, and then, and again, that's the thing, is you never know what will not only sort of upset, the powers that be at YouTube, but also what can offend somebody, out in the chat. Now, with me, I pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, my chat can say pretty much whatever they want. But, if you're going to like threaten a panelist, or if it's going to be something racial, then I say to my mods, you know,
Right.
take those guys out of the
Well,
box.
there's
They don't
always
need to be here.
decorum, right? Like it's
There's
always nice to be
decorum.
polite, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like I I just don't understand this people being offended by shit that strangers say.
Yeah.
Like, why do we give a fuck what anybody else thinks? I don't understand that. Like, if you're my friend, if you're my family, if you're my boss, if you're my whatever, in my life, then I'm going to give a shit about what you think, my kid, what have you, you know? But if you're just some fucking whatever and you're getting offended by something I say, fuck you. I don't
Yeah.
give a fuck. Right? Like, I mean, I give a fuck about my audience. I'm not talking about you guys out there, but you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
just in general, like, if somebody wants to come on and get offended by anything I say, that's really my attitude about a lot of it. And like, that's why my favorite thing is when somebody asks for an apology is like, I'm sorry you have to wait in line to suck my dick. That's the only apology you're going to get from me in most cases, is
Yeah.
because I'm just going to speak my mind at this point because I have the freedom of speech. I understand we don't have the freedom of speech in total on YouTube, but I'm going to push it to the point that I can, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and be, especially if you're going to tell me I can't talk about other things. That's really just going to make me want to, you know, say even more things I'm not supposed to say. I'm definitely one of those kind of people where it's like, you tell me I'm not supposed to do something, I'm going to do it that much more. So,
No, yeah, I'm the same way. And I said it going in. I am not going to edit 1 minute out of any of my videos. You're just going to have to deal with the content that's there. I mean, even, and I'll admit it, I've got videos out there that, man, I wish I could take back. Because, oh, I could have done that better, or, I could have brought up this point or that point, But, I just decided, it's going to be warts and all. People come here to see me, they're going to get me. you know, and I seem to have built this little uh, kind of Manson family fan base. I love you guys, I really do. And but I have people who are backstage who encourage me and say hello in the comments and just say, hey man, just keep going. Now I don't know this for sure, but this is something I'm starting to suspect. Is I think my 8 o'clock show gets shadow banned because I'm not afraid to go on and hit certain subjects, or name names. I just did an entire show earlier today going after. I pretty much went after Bob Iger. Um, yeah, which is something I've kind of started to do a lot on my show. I hadn't intended to, but that's kind of, you know, that's what I do. It's I picked a subject for the week, and I comment on it. And when that CNBC article hit, I'm like, oh, I can't let that go. I got to say something. And That's how it is. And I cover other subjects too. It's not just pop culture. I did a video a few weeks back on mental health. And I kind of laid myself bare on that one too with some things. But and I am not afraid to turn a spotlight on myself. And tell people my own faults and my own fears. And I think I told my subscribers from the very beginning, I am always going to be honest with you, and sometimes the truth hurts. But I don't know how to be any other way other than myself.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like polishing things or
Yeah,
whatever, yeah, well, sure, we always have
sure.
those things that we wish we could get into a video from before, but like when we do our main videos for Midnight's Edge, that's when we try to put as much as we can into them. And sure, there's sometimes things that just don't fit, or you find out after the fact that just don't get a chance to get brought up, and you're like, oh well, if not, we'll get it in the next one. But when it comes to like, yeah, like the streaming and all that stuff, that yeah, it's really difficult not to be yourself because sooner or later somebody's going to figure out you're fake, right? Like, and we figured it out about a lot of
Mm-hmm.
YouTubers over the years. I'm not going to name any names,
Oh,
but
sure.
it usually doesn't take too damn long to figure it out, and or an event or something to happen to kind of figure out who people really are at the end of the day. And look, I mean, am I fucking perfect? No. Have I made enemies? Fuck yes. But at the same time, I mean, I look at it this way. I don't get along with everybody, but it's just the way things work sometimes. I can at least act professional around most people, and that's the most I can say. So I mean, at the end of the day, there's nobody that Midnight's Edge won't interview if we get the opportunity to. So, I can't say that I wouldn't talk to certain people, but yeah, I mean, even as far as YouTube drama and shit like that, yeah, it's
Yeah,
sometimes it's shit you got to deal with, but at this point, I just try to avoid it as much as possible, and that's the easiest way to deal with it.
absolutely. And hello, Darth Shipio. He says, and I think I know what the
Nope,
answer to this is going to be. Nope. Yes. Yeah. That
one of my
that actually
favorites.
was that was actually hilarious. I love that video, and so I was, yeah, look, I dig it, but he's going to get letters.
No, you'd
That's
be
fine.
surprised. Actually, not as
No.
many. I don't think
Yeah.
I got very many complaints on it or anything.
No.
I mean, a lot of people, I mean, at the end of the day, most people have a sense of humor. Even probably a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these woke folk, and a lot of them are just acting the way they are because they feel like it's what they have to do or it's the right thing to do. Or, just out from the genuine place of most people just want to be a good person, right? I genuinely believe that. I'm not going to try and demonize everybody who's jumped on the woke train or drank the Kool Aid. But at the end of the day, sooner or later, hopefully more people figure it out that it's just a matter of look, just because somebody makes a joke about something doesn't mean that they're racist or that they've got some kind of prejudice against short people or anything like that. In fact, I love short people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't laugh at that video and get the humor in it, it's like come on, grow up, grow at least a funny bone for a few minutes because that's the one thing I'd say that we sacrificed most of all in the wake of woke is the humor in the comedy because and this goes right back to what I was saying before is this endless barrage of people getting offended on behalf of others and getting offended about things that aren't even related to them or getting offended and people being worried about other people getting offended. It's like unless it's your mama, your daddy, your friend, like I said, your brother, your sister, somebody you give a shit about, your boss, your kid, something like that, who cares? And even at the end of the day, a lot of those people, their opinion only matters so far, right? I mean, in most cases, if somebody genuinely says something that they don't mean, they will apologize, or if they don't mean it a certain way, they'll try to explain it. But I mean, do I believe that as many people as this movement is trying to paint are sexist, homophobic, racist, insert your ism or whatever istophobe here? No, no. Most people I know are not that way and they wouldn't be that way. Are there prejudices? Yes. Do people react differently to things that they don't know? Yes. but that cannot be also conflated with racism or some kind of prejudice of some sort. I mean, or not prejudice, but like a phobia of some sort. Yes, people are come from preordained places of what you grow up with, what you see on a daily basis, what is normal to you. So sometimes people have to adjust, but just the idea of somebody having to adjust automatically makes them something else is just ridiculous to me. I mean, I don't understand about everything about heart surgery, but does that make me anti-heart surgeon?
No.
I mean, that's a bad probably analogy, but I mean, it's just the point, you know.
Right. Troy in the chat, because we've the chat's really jumping tonight. I want to once again thank everybody for being here. Man, y'all got me thinking that now I need to do a watch party of the PG edit of the Star Trek GD.
Didn't
That's
Mad
his.
Mardigan or somebody like that used to do that, and their channel got in a lot of trouble for it or something like that?
Oh, did
Somebody used
I?
to anyway. Yeah,
And I'd rather watch that than 80% of what we
I'm
have
sure
out
you're
there
probably
now.
just kidding, Troy. But I was trying to remember
Yeah.
because somebody actually used to do that. They used to cut out
Oh, I'm
the
sure.
porn segments, and they just
Hmm.
watched the Star Trek and porn parodies and all that shit.
Yeah, but
They got in
and
trouble for it.
there was um, there was somebody today. There's Mr. Hyde. I don't know if you know that channel. He
Not sure.
does watch parties during on the Saturday afternoons, and he had on the movie Creature, which is this kind of this alien ripoff movie
I
from like the
have
mid
it. I haven't
'80s.
watched it, but I have it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cheesy, but it's fun. I like it, but I can see why people might not. Um, it's got Klaus Kinski in it for no reason, and
Yeah, I got it from Vinegar Syndrome a while back.
yeah, he's. I'm not even sure he knew he was being filmed. You know, it's kind of like that.
Nah,
Um,
he's just crazy anyway.
yeah, but and that's a movie that has uh, some nudity and quite a bit of gore.
Hmm.
You know, great '80s horror cheese, all the things you want to see in a horror movie from the '80s. It's
Hmm.
all there. You know, but and but the version that they had to show is obviously not the final film. It has to blur some stuff out, and it goes into black and white when the gore happens, and it's kind of, if you're seeing it for the first time, you're like, what the hell is this? But you know, we, like I said, back to the guidelines that we just have to follow, and you do have to be careful when you're doing a watch party, and I've been involved in a number of them now. Even did one on my own, but with Troy's help, thank goodness, he was the MVP on that show. But you know, you have to be careful because there are certain movies that you can't show, um,
Hmm.
or certain
No, you got copyright and all that shit. Yeah.
content. There's copyright and all that, and even and this happened with the Bill, where last Halloween, or it might have been the Halloween before that, he was showing Freaks,
Hmm.
the Todd Browning film from the '30s, and that's a public domain film, and he still got had to pull that
Sometimes it
show
depends on
down
who owns that
because
scan too. That's another
yeah.
problem. Because, like for instance, I think like a movie like Plan 9 from Outer Space is in public domain,
Mm-hmm.
but now like I have a Blu-ray version of it that they inserted some stuff to where they know it's theirs. To where if you try to use that one, they'll probably claim it. I think same thing goes for Night of Living Dead. It's technically in the public domain still or whatever, but I think
Mm-hmm.
the 4K scan is owned by Janus Films and Criterion. Like they have a copyright thing on it or whatever. They re-registered it or whatever it is. It's kind of dicey in that sense. Like sometimes people will try and claim even trailers. I've had trailer houses claim trailers and shit in the past. Not even just the studios. So you'd be surprised
Mm-hmm.
what people
Yeah.
claim. And a
Yeah.
lot of times you're at the mercy of fighting, you know, whatever. Like, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You take somebody to court? I mean,
Yeah. No. Um, Yeah, I got hit on the Equalizer 3 trailer.
Oh yeah, trailers are a big. That was.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody at Warner Brothers once, and so I was like, "How the fuck are somebody supposed to like? Do you guys have like a?" I was like, "Don't you guys have like a website or a YouTube channel or something where people can get clips and stuff that you guys aren't going to claim?" And they're like, "No," and I'm really not supposed to say much, but basically, the best advice I can give you is don't use trailers because all trailers are watermarked.
Mhm.
Because like there's a lot of these channels that just upload trailers and stuff so they can nab them. Otherwise, they were like, don't use more than like, 10, 12 seconds of footage in one time. Edit around it if you can. Leave out music if you can. Basically, just all the stuff we've all learned over time. And I tried telling people way back when. And these are the kind of the standard rules that in most cases, 9 times out of 10, you can get away with most things. Now, there are the exceptions. Like Netflix is a big jerk. Paramount usually is a pretty big jerk. Universal can be a jerk no matter what. But I mean, usually if you can fall within that guideline, you can kind of make it. Um, but that's kind of just what I was told from that individual.
And Troy did have a question. This is which reminds me, Tom, someday in the future,
Oh,
months down the line, I'd love to have you back on Last Call for a Pink Floyd's The Wall watch
sure.
party. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a bootleg Russian Blu-ray copy of that.
You see, that's why you're the man. you know, you're
It's
the
somebody that they recorded it off of HD net, I guess, but it's a Blu-ray. It's HD, and yeah.
I want to go to your house just to see your collection. I really
Oh, it's
do.
vast. It's quite vast.
Um,
Sometime maybe I'll just have to get together like my bootlegs and my anomalies or whatever you want to call them, I guess.
oh,
Not
definitely.
quite so
Yeah.
legal copies of
Oh.
things, I guess.
yeah. Uh,
I have a few.
oh, I'm sure.
I got like Song of the South and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
shit like that. In fact, I might have it right here. Where is it? Oh, it's over there. But I got like I know I got at least one here nearby me here. Well, I showed Godzilla '85 earlier. That's a bootleg. But let's see here. Well, that's one that I got. Look, I know I got a couple. Because sometimes people send me stuff too now. Of course,
Hmm.
that's one of the cool things is when people send. Like somebody did 4K versions of the Star Wars films for me, the
Nice.
non-special editions, original versions and such. And yeah, somebody sent me Song of the South, which I mentioned. But I did have a bootleg here, like a Spanish bootleg, and I can't find it now, of Fright Night 2. Because I don't know if most people are aware of this, but it's only been released on DVD in the U.S. It's never gotten a Blu-ray release. In fact, I don't think it's ever been legally released anywhere on Blu-ray. But this is a HD version of it, probably from a streaming or something or other that somebody nabbed. Now I can't find the disc, but yeah, it's just basically a bootleg. I mean, the only difference is it's the covers in all Spanish and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's coming out officially. But the reason why that movie's got such a have been a hard time to come by is because I guess the one of the producers on it was shit. What was those two brothers that killed their parents?
Menendez.
Menendez brothers. Their dad was one of the producers on it.
Hmm.
So I guess it's all tied up with their bullshit financially. So I guess that's part of the problem. But yeah, that's just one of a few I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I managed to snag a couple of bootlegs through the years myself, and including one. I don't know if I still have it. I probably don't.
In
But
fact, I
there
think
was
Troy sent me a bootleg of the Christmas special. I think it was you, Troy, wasn't it? The Star Wars Christmas special. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Steven.
No, that's okay. The holiday, the holiday special. I still can't say it. That's my running joke. Um, yeah, it's like it's the holiday special. Who would want it, you know? But you know, it's a damn sight better than the Star Wars we're getting these days. Though, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, remember then when that was the biggest joke in the Star Wars
Yeah,
franchise? Yeah, I miss those days.
very true. All right.
Sad. That was like at least they even then they at least could get the team back on screen together for fuck's sake.
Yeah, very
Couldn't do that.
true.
Didn't do that for the new film.
Yeah.
We had to listen to Carrie Fisher sing that god awful song, but
And Troy confirming he did send a holiday special.
that's
He
what I
did,
thought. That's what I thought.
and Song of the South. I have that as
That was,
well.
oh, you did that one too? Really? Wow, that was so long ago.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten you were the one that sent me that. But thank you. And then here's the one I found. Yeah, here's the Fright Night 2 one.
Oh, right on. Me.
I mean, the Blu-ray looks. I mean, you can tell by the bottom it's a burnt disc, but
Mhm.
they did a pretty good job on the main part. But no, this is actually coming out pretty soon, so I'm glad. The second one's not as good as the first one, but it's still fun.
Yeah, I've never actually seen the second one. So,
Really?
really, yeah. I
Mm.
for whatever reason
Most
I
of the
never
same
got around
cast is
to it.
back. The only one who doesn't return basically is Evil Eddie, of course, and
Well,
um shit, what's her face from she was on Married with Children at
oh, the
that time
Married with
already.
Children. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a new girlfriend, but and of course Chris Sarandon's dead, but you know.
Well, yeah.
But like yeah, like it's his sister actually, the vampire sister, and she's actually gunning for him, and it's a different film. Tommy Lee Wallace actually directed it. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's not as good as the first movie, but it's fun.
Cool. Good to know. Yeah, I'm kind of weird because with all of the movies that I've seen and all of the movies that I own, you would be really surprised in some cases by what I haven't seen. You know, like, and I've admitted to this, and everybody can stick me with spears if they want, and that's fine. I hadn't seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles until like last Thanksgiving. That
Oh
was like the
wow! I
first
mean,
time
I've
I
got
had
some
seen the
gaps, but
movie.
damn.
Yeah.
But
Um,
no, I would appreciate it, Troy. But no, actually, somebody hooked me up with all four or all three. I mean, I just said four. 4K is what I meant. Yeah. So the only one that technically really isn't 4K is this one. That's just because they're getting there. But yeah, they look pretty good. The discs look really cool too. Like they look like a real. Like it's not a sticker or nothing. I mean, you can of course tell from the bottom it's a burnt disc, but shit, they look nice. And yeah, it was nice of the guy to do that for me, and nice professional looking.
yeah, it
Well, that
looks
kind of
really
like what
good.
you did, Troy.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. So yeah, and I love it when fans send me this kind of stuff. And you guys out there listening and stuff like Troy sent me a few things now, as pointed out. In fact, I'll grab the Song of the South one here.
Yeah, let me see if I got that around here somewhere myself. Yeah. All right.
And I think this one is he took.
See what I didn't
I think didn't this have a video or something like that, or I think this is from the video case or something like that. The old. It did make its way to video at least, I think. But there you go. Try put that together for me. There you go. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So, I mean, it's limited by the fact that it's a 35 millimeter scan of a 60, 70-year-old movie. But hey, yeah, I think it was probably from one of the newer re-releases because they re-released it the last time. I want to say it was 84 or 86, something like that. 85 maybe. somewhere in there.
I found my stack here, and there's my Song of the South.
Same one I got. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And
Now, Troy, I don't know if you have this though. I have
holiday special.
a downloaded. Yep, that's the same one you sent me too. Yep. You could make a bonus disc for that. I have a downloaded version of it as well. It's the same scan, but it also has like a bunch of the trailers, the soundtrack. I think there's some other things in there too. I'd have to look, but yeah, like a bunch of that kind of extra stuff on there. Maybe not enough to constitute a whole nother disc, but I mean, yeah.
Let me see. I want to acknowledge the chat here. Keely says, we joke about Garrett being late for his streams, the size of Drew's dong, and people pouring bleach into their eyes after looking at the memes at the end of comic streams. Yeah, I mean, YouTube really has become kind of like this last bastion of comedy, and I now this is the thing I have to make clear. I have not watched commercial television in 2 years. I have no clue what's going on network television or commercial television. I haven't seen it. I don't know what shows are even still on. You but I can't imagine that if there are any sitcoms left, that they can be all that great. Because what did they talk about without upsetting somebody?
Yeah, I can't think of the last time there was a popular sitcom since maybe like the Goldbergs. Um, uh, yeah, no, I mean, I really haven't either. Maybe even longer outside of some of the streaming services I have live feeds of some of the local channels, but I'll throw that on once in a great while in the morning or whatever. But no, other than that, I really haven't watched much terrestrial TV in a long time, so I can't really speak to much that's on there outside of what pops up on streaming from time to time. But I don't, me from what we what we report on. Even a lot of that I get out of watching a lot of it anymore because I think Andre was just getting worried for my health after a while. Just
Yeah,
stressed and watching some of this shit was just getting
yeah.
yeah.
That was the funny thing, and I totally did this to myself. Is because every time there's like a TV show or a movie that gets like mixed reviews, like you'll have the people on the one side who love it, and then people who sort of vehemently hate it, and that's when I get the most curious. Even if it's something I wasn't interested in seeing myself, I, you know, that's when I start to wonder, okay, maybe now I have to give it a look just to decide for myself because I don't want to speak out on it unless I've seen it, you know. So when the reviews for Ahsoka came out, and there were people who, especially the people who watched Rebels and Clone Wars, is like, hey, we like it, may not be perfect, but we get it. And then you had the people who were totally confused on the other side. Now, I saw pretty much most of Rebels, and I didn't see all of Clone Wars, but I saw enough of it to be able to follow through on it. And I thought, okay, I'll let my I'll let my subscribers decide, should I review it or not? And it looks like I'm going to have to watch it. I did that to myself, but it, another one was a Haunted Mansion. That was not a movie I had intended to see, but Bill talked me into it because we ended up doing like a joint review on it, because he was he knows the Haunted Mansion ride, and he knew the whole backstory and what everything meant. He caught all the Easter eggs I didn't, but during the course of that review, when he explained it to me, I had like this better appreciation of the movie, because like, oh, okay, now I get what that reference meant. Why are we going to this other mansion? You know, and so every once in a while you'll find a diamond in the rough, but I'm at a point now where, and I mentioned this last week, it's very hard for me to get hyped for a lot of these movies. That I'm either not interested, or if I do see them, they're one and done. There's maybe 3 or 4 movies this year that I would say are worth watching multiple times. Out of the 30 or so movies I've seen.
Yeah, it's been one of
You know.
those years. I mean, there's been some good stuff, don't get me wrong, but,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, it's been to me like stuff like Tetris and Air
Hmm.
and, whatnot. I mean, uh, I liked things like, Renfield and Megan and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's been a few decent films, but as far as most of the franchise stuff, I haven't seen John Wick 4 yet, or Equalizer 3, but
Hmm.
there's nothing that I would really say this has stood out as decent this year. It's been a lot of crap, for the most part. Even Mission Impossible 7 was a bit of a letdown. But then again, I'm fully been
Yeah,
open about the fact that I'm not a
you're not a
huge
fan
Mission
of that
Impossible fan.
series to begin
I'm
with.
a
Yeah.
fan, but not like to me it's not much different than the Transformers series. That's kind of the way I see it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's another one of those. You know, like they're all pretty much the same thing, just new movie. The same kind of plot twists, the same kind of characters and stunts
Mm.
and such. I'm
So,
a bit of a snob when it comes to my films, I guess. Not that I don't like films like that
no.
or movies that aren't, but it's like I get to a point where you get tired of it. That's kind of where I started, and I think we got into this a little bit the other night,
Hmm.
but not too deep. But or last week, I should say, where kind of what started me down this path was more so the McDonaldization of films, is what I used to call it. Not so much. I mean, the woke thing wasn't a thing yet. The first real inkling of that was Ghostbusters.
Hmm.
The McDonaldization and just some of the treatment of certain things as just basically content. I mean, that was kind of like, I don't know if that word, I mean, I'm sure that word existed, but I mean, in a sense, like, I don't know if they were really referring to shows and movies as content quite yet, but I was starting to see it creep in, and I was starting to see it as a problem. Um, and it went to an extreme of the woke side of things after that. And those two mixed together were just kind of like a really bad formula. And that's how things like Ghostbusters happened, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, it's hopefully come near its end. I know we've talked about this endlessly, but no, that's the sad part. Is just the imagination has gone out of these films. I couldn't get it. I'd scratch my head constantly, going, "We spent years, talking about all these movies we wish we could see, or that studios and directors wish they could make, and now they can." Right? Lord of the Rings proved that,
Hmm.
and now it's like it seems like we've done nothing but regress since then. It's like, no, no, no. Things should have gotten better. We should be able to see things now that we've never thought we could bring to screen before. And we kind of got that with the Avengers, right? But it
Hmm.
almost feels like that was a false prophet of sorts. I don't know how to put it. But I mean, yeah, granted, we got our good 10 years out of it. But at the end of the day, at what cost? Not to even be punny and quote endgame. But it's like it is kind of feels like that. It's like, okay, yeah, we got that, but at what cost? What did it cost us? It cost us the originality of films. It cost us taking a chance. It cost studios, you know, making the mid-level or smaller films. It cost. It's just so weird because I never. I think you're roughly the same age as me, Steven. So like you can probably remember back in the day, a sequel was kind of seen as like a dirty word in Hollywood, right?
Hmm.
And now it's like that's all they want. And it's like the opposite. It could not believe it because back in the day, it was like Paramount used to churn out Friday the 13th movies, but they were embarrassed by them. They made them because they made money and they covered costs, but they as soon as they could sell it, they did. I mean, I'm sure Warner Brothers felt the same way about the Police Academy movies, for instance.
Hmm.
Were they prestigious or anything? Fuck no, but they paid the bills. You know what
Right.
I mean? So they churn them out and they were kind of embarrassed by them. And that's honestly the truth because I've read it and heard it from multiple people as to why the studios kept using Roman numerals is because they knew that the general public was so illiterate with Roman numerals that after part three, they didn't know what movie it was anyway.
Hmm.
And then that's also then when they started dropping that and just started going to like, Winter Soldier or whatever, the subtitle and no number, you know. And it's hard to believe that Jaws 2 was the first movie with the number 2 in the title. We had The Godfather Part 2, but that was the Roman numeral. But for that very reason is like it was seen as, like that was kind of weird at that time to have Jaws 2. You know what I mean? Like just nobody kind of seen that before. You didn't get a novel and it was called Gone with the Wind 2. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like very rarely would you ever like the Bible part 2. Okay. Like the next 100 years. Or next 1,000 years, I mean. But yeah, like just it's just weird because that shift in Hollywood in our entertainment in general has been odd. Shows have gone away. We haven't had a decent comedy, a sitcom like you were saying before, in since probably the Goldbergs, and that's barely a sitcom. I guess the real argument, I guess, what you could say would be Big Bang Theory. I suppose, I guess, would be the last true hit sitcom we ever had, and that was the last one that really kind of followed the formula of the sitcom, albeit a ripoff of Friends, anyway, right?
Hmm.
But that's what all sitcoms were. They were either honeymooners or one of these other kind of sitcoms. At the end of the day, a work sitcom or a you know, trying to think of the name of it now. Odd Couple, Jesus.
Hmm.
Those are basically your three type of sitcoms, and or what came in the 50s and 60s was talking car and or animal,
Sure. Yeah.
or alien. It came in too,
Or
eventually.
alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite Martian. Yeah.
Or genie, or insert your magical creature here. Yeah,
Yeah.
or just a straight up family comedy, right? Like, I mean, that's literally like you had your very few kinds, and then when you get to the 80s, they were either just so saccharine and cookie cutter, or you had things like Roseanne that were finally breaking the mold, right?
Hmm.
Um, and that's kind of what I feel like we don't have anymore. You've got a lot of people who claim they're doing that, who think they're breaking glass ceilings and doing things that are different, but you're not. You're not doing anything that wasn't done 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago in some cases. And they're not bringing any new ideas to the table. It's just gotten stale. I mean, and it's not just the woke factor, it's everything.
Hmm. Now, I saw a thing on Twitter the other day, saying, it, uh, this is so stupid, and I called them on it right away, and they said like LL Cool J and Deep Blue Sea, first time a black man ever survived a horror film. I go, did you not see the crazies?
Oh, I hate that myth. One of these days, I'm going to go through and
Yeah.
I'm going to bust that myth because somebody else has done it too. I know. It
Hmm.
is one of the dumbest fucking myths that ever perpetuated myths of Hollywood movies. And I don't know why it became a thing. I really don't understand the basis for it or why. Because in most cases, the black person is not the first person to die. And in more cases that I can think of, they're actually the ones who survive.
Hmm.
And it just, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know where this came from. If somebody knows, please tell me. But like, there's not as many cases of black men dying or whatever. I think Jurassic Park is where it came from, sadly, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and even then, hey, there could be a one-armed Samuel L. Jackson on that island. We don't know.
That could be, well, they were just talking about because the first guy, I guess, was black that got killed by the
Ye-
Raptors in the movies. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but he's a
but
stunt
even
guy
that
and he
stretch.
got killed and everything.
I just
So
never remember that being a thing, and then all of a sudden it became a joke. Like, I
yeah,
guess some stand-up comedian did like some bit on it, and I'm just like, no, it's never really been a thing. And I mean, Scream 2 made that joke too, and at the time I felt that was kind of out of place because I'm like, what are you referring to?
yeah. But the cool thing there is that they subverted it because he does survive.
Yeah, and look at,
You
like, the
know,
Friday
so
the
there you
13th,
go.
and the perfect example is just the Friday the 13th franchise. I don't think we get a black character until, like, the 5th movie.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember one. And same thing with, like, some of these other horror films. Halloween, I don't remember a black person other than the black nurse in the 2nd film, and she's, like, the 4th or 5th to die.
Yeah.
Like, so again, I'm really stretching to try and find this supposed fucking myth that's out there that the black people are always the first ones to die in these movies, because that is not the case. In fact, Friday the 13th Part 5 has multiple black characters and one of them survives. So I don't even understand what the hell. I don't know. I give up.
No, it's because
Nightmare on
I
Elm Street
kind of
4
yeah.
is when Kincaid dies, not 3.
Mm,
Yeah, he's the first one to die in 4, but does that count because he survived 3? And he dies in the same time as all the other 2, 3 characters, so yeah.
yeah. Well, that's another thing that they used to do in horror movies back in the day was have the
Well, not the
character
same time.
who survived the previous film get killed at the beginning of the sequel. Uh, Friday the 13th Part 2 comes to mind. Um, spoiler alert for like an almost 50-year-old
Yeah.
movie. But sorry, folks, Alice dies in Part 2. But,
Mm.
you know, but of course, that there was a whole other reason why that happened. That's almost a stream in itself. But yeah, I don't know where that comes from because I think of it as well, you don't know your history. You're not paying attention to film. You know, like I said, I brought up The Crazies, and this is the original movie in '72. The black dude lives at the end of the movie. You know,
Yeah.
um,
I was gonna say,
is
if
the only
anything,
one who survives
there's
actually at
probably
the end
more
of
of
it.
an
But
argument to be made that
yeah,
there's an underrepresentation of black people in horror films.
absolutely.
That I would probably say is, yeah, you're probably
Yeah,
right, because as I just pointed out, I'm stretching to remember. Was there anybody who was black? No, not in the first 3 Friday the 13th movies, or 4. It's
no,
not until the 5th one. And like I said, Halloween, outside of the black nurse, no, there's not another one then for
no.
I don't think there is one in part 4 or 5. Um, or even maybe one in 6, but I don't even think that there's a black person in 6 either. So right there, there's 2 major franchises. Nightmare on Elm Street was always diverse. They had quite
Hmm.
a varied amount of, like I said, Kincaid actually lived part 3. Although it was till part 3 that we actually had a black character in Nightmare on Elm Street. So go figure there too. Yeah, and in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not one black person in any of those films that I can remember. So yeah, I think there'd be
No,
more of an argument made that there's just not enough diversity in horror films early on, which is underrepresentating the audience, because as most people know, yeah, horror is big in the black community. So yeah, I mean, there's probably more of an argument to be made for that than I would say that there's any argument for this idea that the black people are the first ones to always die in horror films. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, that being
right.
said,
Right. I want to acknowledge the chat very quick because they're kind of getting ahead of us here a little bit. Bill's saying, I
oh,
would love
nice.
a 4K of Something Wicked This Way comes.
I
Yes.
don't even know if Disney's put that on Blu-ray yet. I'd have to look. I don't think they have,
Oh,
because I think Disney owns that, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so. Has that even been
But
on, like, Disney Plus at all? Maybe then.
I couldn't tell you for sure. No.
Yeah.
That's a movie I haven't seen in ages.
Mhm.
First time I ever saw Jonathan Price in a movie.
Mm.
Yeah, very creepy, Mr. Dark. Yeah, this good, great movie. Um, Lester says, I saw Family Matters on the back to back via TBS. Other than that, I don't miss cable. I don't either. Because it was on television where I was really starting to see the woke. start to happen.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because I
Especially on cable, yeah, you're right.
yeah, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I've brought this up before. That I didn't see it. To me, I didn't really start noticing the woke until about 2018. I know it was going on way before that, but I kind of wasn't really paying attention because my father was ill, and I was really more seeing
Mhm.
to him. I really wasn't paying attention to what was going
Right.
on television or anything anymore. But I started to see kind of the woke happening in 2018,
Mhm.
and cop shows where cops are apologizing for being cops. You know, people doing stuff that are clearly illegal
Mhm.
and saying, "Well, you shouldn't have been arrested. They're arresting you because you're black." No, they're arresting you because you broke the shop window and stole the display case. And so there was a lot of that, and I just got to the point to where why am I paying for satellite television? Why am I paying to be called a nist or a phobe every 2 seconds?
Mhm.
Or is enough? Um, and hello to that 70s rock fan. I do want to
Hey, Ryan.
acknowledge that you're here. Um, Aaron Ratliff says, honestly, Tom, I wouldn't even call the Goldbergs popular. It had okay ratings, but it wasn't next day water cooler. That's all anyone is talking about.
Um,
Eh,
I would say there was a few episodes and times that would pique interest, like when a certain character episode was being done. There was a few. Like I really remember like Robert England was a big deal when he was on there.
hmm,
Trying to think. There was a couple other ones, but yeah, no, I'm not gonna say it didn't fizzle out pretty quickly though. Because that was like the last episode I watched was the Robert England one.
Keely Chow
And then
saying, I
after
watched.
they fired
Sorry.
the dad, I just quit. They never went back. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, they did, didn't they? Yeah. He got, I guess, Me Too'd or something.
Basically, it was nothing really about sex so much as just he was an asshole, I guess,
Oh,
or telling obscene jokes and shit or something or other.
yeah.
But yeah, he's an old school comedian though, so I could see where. I mean, I'm not trying to make
Yeah.
excuse for him if he was being out of line, but I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. It's probably people just couldn't. Some people just need to grow a fucking funny bone and have a sense of humor.
Yeah, I know. Keely says, I watch reruns of Buffy and the X-Files on Comet every weekday and reruns of Batman, Adventures of Superman, and Wonder Woman on H&I every weekend. Yeah. And this is, again, something that I'm talking about. You have to go back. How far back do you have to go back just for Buffy and X-Files? 20, 30 years already?
Nah, if I flip
Before you
on
find
TV shows
something good?
anymore,
Yeah.
yeah, it's usually older
You know,
stuff.
yeah, with me personally, Dragnet. Um, yes, folks, I watched Dragnet. Um, the original Mission Impossible series, Equalizer, the original Equalizer. That's what I'll go back to. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like it's almost like Hollywood. We don't really need you anymore. We have 100 years of past entertainment when you knew what the hell you were doing that we can fall back on. Um, I'm just fine watching Predator again. It's I'm good. You know. Um, Troy says the thing I liked about Clone Wars is that it filled a story that should have been in the prequels. I agree. I could have totally done without Ahsoka though. Yeah, because she's a retcon. I don't like retcon characters. You, you know, um, I know with you, Tom, you kind of see characters like like Spider Gwen and Miles Morales and stuff like that is
It's dumb, it's
these
redundant,
redundant characters. That's how I see Ahsoka.
it's worse than when you go to see, like, a tribute band, man. It's
Yeah,
just fucking stupid. It's like they're cartoon characters, they're comic book characters. They shouldn't age. You don't have to age them. I don't need 5 Robins.
no,
1's good enough. I mean, sure, you can do things with the character that make them progress a little bit, but you don't have to. I mean, South Park, The Simpsons, these shows work, the Flintstones, they're all the same age still.
mhm,
You see one of these cartoons and they do something new. They don't generally change because that's the beauty of it, right? So I just don't get it. I mean, you could treat a lot of these characters basically like James Bond at the end of the day, in a lot of ways. I mean, there's no real reason to have to age or change a lot of these characters out. You just recast them and kind of modernize them a little bit every once in a while, and that's it.
mhm,
Um, it's just kind of weird. I get it. Some people are fans of it, and I get the idea once in a while is like a one-off or a Batman Beyond kind of thing, or yeah, it's kind of cool to see maybe Robin grow up to be Nightwing. But at the end of the day, it just why? It
yeah,
just doesn't make any sense. Why would you tell a story about Robin Hood's third brother instead of Robin Hood? It just makes no sense. You know what I mean? Like that's just the way I look at it.
no, I'm with you there. Uh, Christopher Dominguez says Super Mario Brothers and Oppenheimer are the only films I've seen this year. Yeah, they're two of the better ones, for sure. And I went into the Super Mario Brothers with and really Oppenheimer too, in a way, with kind of no expectations. Because Super Mario Brothers, I am not like the authority on that gaming series. I know a little bit about a little bit, but I haven't really played the games as much as I should, I guess. But I came out of that movie, I had a blast. That was a fun movie, and you can take kids to it. And there's no messaging in it. And personally, with Oppenheimer, again, I went in with kind of low expectations because Nolan's kind of hit and miss with me. Um, he's done movies that I don't want to say haven't liked, but just he's definitely done movies that I thought were better than others. Um, so I went into Oppenheimer going, I could completely hate this, and I came out of it thinking it was one of the better movies.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out
No,
on disc. It's not something I'm gonna go
it's
spend 3 hours to watch in the theater though. I got kind of burnt by the last Nolan film, and I like some of his stuff, but it's like
yeah,
some of it's kind of overly pretentious, and he doesn't always stick the landing for me. But I get why people like him.
yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't know. Is Tetris out on video? I haven't seen it anywhere. Or unless he means the
It means
game
the
itself.
game, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it makes more sense. Because
Oh, it'd
I
be
guess
nice. Yeah,
that was an Apple TV
yeah. I might have to try and
film,
watch that
right?
again before I dump
Yeah,
Apple at some point here.
yeah. Because Apple TV is one of those streaming services that are very stingy about releasing their content on video.
Sadly, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are streaming services that are really good with it. Shutter, which I've brought up in the past, is very good about
Yeah.
releasing content because they get it. They get that people want physical copies.
Mhm.
So
That and a lot of their stuff is acquired too. That's also a reason why.
yeah.
Like they don't produce it themselves. They just buy the rights to stream it.
And I think Lester agrees with you here. MI7 pales to the original movie with Cruz.
Yeah.
It's not the best one. I liked it, but it's not the best one. I agree.
No, but they're pretty much all the same. It starts off with some elaborate
Yeah.
plan that goes wrong, and then Ethan usually gets either excommunicated or has to go undercover in some strange way to prove his innocence or somebody's innocence or whatever. And then, yeah, and then there's some elaborate thing he's got to do that. It's always the same formula, a lot like the Transformer films in that sense. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's all subjective, really.
Mhm. Yeah, Keely, leave the chat right now. Get out. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with Bill. I can't remember the last time I got real excited for anything. I guess I'm looking forward to Dune. Um, Trying to think. Deadpool 3. Beverly Hills Cop 4 is supposed to be dropping at some point here on Netflix. I don't know about getting excited for it though. I'm more worried than anything.
Bill asks, which Ghostbusters 2016 or Afterlife? Really, Bill?
2016, yeah, obviously.
Afterlife. Yeah.
I liked
Okay.
Afterlife.
Yeah. And I'm
That's
sorry,
that's
folks.
a
I'm.
situation where passing the torch makes sense, right? When you've got literal physical people that are playing these characters and originally were these characters, when you don't want to reboot something like that, that's a little different, right? Kind of like when a character dies on a show. It's a little hard to kind of replace that person.
Yeah.
But to where, like, if you just James Bonding a lot of these superheroes and stuff, like, I mean, shit, we had 4 different Batman in that original Michael Keaton, Tim Burton. Even though some people try to separate out the Schumacher movies, it's like, no, they're in the same continuity. Sorry to say, it's just a different guy playing the part. That's the only thing. It's just that's all it is. I mean, we used to have that all the time. I don't know why that's all of a sudden a big deal with people. And that's another thing I get, and I love interacting with people. Don't get me wrong, but one of the things I get asked or proposed to me more often than not is, well, what if they did something in the universe, whether it's DC, Marvel, what have you, only they would just replace the actor because of multiverse stuff. I'm like, why are you overcomplicating something that they would just do? Like they didn't draw attention to recasting Rhodey. I mean, it just
No.
happened. I mean, that just happens all the time in Hollywood. It used to all the time. I just don't understand why, for certain franchises like that, why that has to be a big thing, or why every few years we can't just get something similar, but just a new, refreshed version of it, and you don't have to necessarily go back and tell all the backstory and all that shit all the time.
Troy in the chat says that now I want History of
Uh,
the World Part 2. Yeah.
your wish is granted, but you don't want it. It's
No.
on Hulu right now. I've heard it's horrible. I didn't even bother watching it.
No, I didn't either. Because it just looked too much like that Drunk History show to me. I'd just rather watch
That's what
that.
it kind of looked like to me too from the trailer, and I'm just like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Even though Mel Brooks, I think, is involved in it in some tangential form, but yeah.
And hello to Adega Outlaw.
Howdy.
Lester says, New Night Court wasn't terrible. Haven't seen that yet.
I've heard mixed to that,
Yeah.
yeah. I think even Script Doctor was trying to wrap his head around that one a little bit. But, yeah.
Darth Scipio says, the Big Bang Theory made the men act like children. Yeah, that's why I didn't bother with it.
I liked the first couple seasons weren't too bad. But then when it became more like Friends is when I started tuning out. And then it really did kind of become more of a making fun of the guys than actually people being allowed to laugh along with them. So yeah, I see what you're saying there.
There's Aaron agreeing with you again there. Jedi Bill says we're getting Frasier back too.
Yeah, I've been hearing a little bit about that. That was not one I ever really got into. I loved Cheers, but I never really got into Frasier back in the day.
But I'm wondering how well that's going to do, because you're getting Kelsey Grammer back, but you're not getting any of the other cast because he's moving back to Boston to kind of reconnect with his son. So,
well, maybe there's open door for cameos from people from Cheers, so maybe it'll be kind of a de facto.
Yeah, That's true
Kind of
too.
recross over. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to dive into that and see. Because I do love Cheers, but yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone not watch an Andy Sedaris movie? I actually have an Andy Sedaris box set.
Andy Sedaris.
Yeah. Like Hard Ticket to Hawaii and stuff like that.
Trying to remember if I have any of his movies or not. I don't think I do.
Mhm.
It didn't really ring any bells, and it's not looking like any of the ones I have. Although it's not saying some of them aren't ones I necessarily wouldn't own, but no, not offhand. Yeah, you get much deeper into the muck than I do on that, my friend.
They killed Hicks and Newt. Yeah, that was the problem that a lot of people had with 3, and I understand that. But the thing with me and Alien 3 is I have this really weird history with that movie. Was I saw it at a time where I was looking for, like, very dark, brooding material because it's just kind of where my head was at the time, and, so I was kind of seeking out movies where they just kinda knocked everybody off at the end, and with it and these kinda nihilistic endings, but I look back at that movie now and I go, "That was a missed opportunity." And that's why I was really curious to see what Neil Blomkamp was gonna do with his movie, but now, I guess that's not gonna happen. Keely says, "Helen from I Know What You Did Last Summer lasted longer than Cece from Scream 2." Yeah, and the fact that in the book she doesn't die.
Yeah, that was a little odd, but I didn't even think of that till like you guys were chit chatting about in the chat. Scream 2 was kind of on the nose with the intro, with having Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps get killed right away.
Yeah,
And then you have the camera guy say it later in the movie, and it's like that's one of the few times I can remember a black person dying early on in the movie that wasn't a black exploitation movie. So I don't understand, yeah, where it came from, but that might even been the movie that perpetuated it, to be honest with you.
maybe. Dragnet is a great show. It actually was a radio show before that, and uh, there's a channel called, the Late Late Horror Show. I think that's the name of the channel. It's actually where I met Connie and where we met, speaking of networking again, because, we met because I was listening one night to, the old radio show, and I just started chatting up some people into chat, and, just kinda went from there. Um, Keely Chuss says Gennady Tartakovsky's, Star Wars Clone Wars is part of the pre-Disney EU. Uh, yeah, I can watch that. That's fine. I don't consider that like necessarily like a retcon or Disney or anything, and, but I can watch it just because it's Tartakovsky. In fact, Primal, his that show
That
he
is
does
my
Primal is one I
that
need
is
to
my
see.
Clone Wars. To me,
Yeah,
that is, and not the other stuff. So
yeah. And Das Wolfen, sorry I missed you. You're off to bed. Good night. Thank you for watching. And those of you, in case you missed it, I had Das Wolfen on the show a few weeks back. Please go back and check out that episode. All right, let me jump through the chat real quick here before we start wrapping things up. Um, Darth Scipio is asking, have we seen the end of the superhero flicks? I think so.
no, not the end, but at least
I mean,
not
not the
the.
end, but
It'll be a while before they really, I'd say, have their moment in the sun. Sure, we're gonna get a Spider-Man and this and that every once in a while, but I think the studios are really gonna try to find ways of making them cheaper first. But then, yeah, they might fall off like westerns did. Who knows?
yeah, Afterlife was good, and it Yeah, I mean, it's like they remembered how to make a good movie, and especially after 2016, Ghostbusters really needed a win. And hello, Eagle Rider, Rosetta. Hello. Says I've heard mixed reviews, but the biggest beef most have with Mel couldn't do as much as he should have. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how involved Mel Brooks really is with that with the History of the World Part Two. I would say it's probably just a name only for the most part. New Night Court was done as Laura Cat trying to pay tribute to his fellow cast members who passed away. I can understand that from that perspective. Yeah, he and Richard Mole. I think like they're the last kind of two of the originals remaining now, sadly. And yeah, I could if I watched a new Night Court show at all, it would be for him because that was such a fun character. I'm kind of curious to see where he is after all this time. Well, John Mahoney passed away. You can't do Seattle right without his dad, especially since he left Seattle at the end of the series. Oh, okay, so he left at the end of the series. Okay. And hello, Six.
Hello.
Rosetta says, I have a bunch of the old Dragnet skits from when my mom and her siblings were growing up. Yeah. They did a really fun take on it in Uncle Buck with John Candy and Macaulay Culkin. It's a really funny scene. And hello, Stark of Iron, Tony. Good to see you. Rosetta says, I hated the Clone Wars series mostly because the art style annoyed me.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. I
I'm not
agree.
a fan of CG animation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a real soul to it.
The original Clone Wars made sense in terms of Anakin's journey. Yeah, I agree. Because although looking back through the eyes of Disney, Star Wars, it was gold. Yeah, that's another. That's another thing. He's 97. Yeah, well, yeah. He's up. He's up there. I think Mel Brooks has earned his retirement.
Yeah.
All right. All right. It says Marsha Warfield is still around, and so is the lady that played Billy in season one. I don't think Marsha Warfield
I think
is.
she just passed
I
not too
think
long
she
ago, yeah.
passed. Yeah. Um, okay. I think. Yeah, that pretty much wraps up the chat.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry,
running out of
I
steam,
did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't. That's fine. I don't normally let the chat go that far and without. So I kind of had to speed through that. Sorry, folks.
No, no, you're
Um,
fine, man.
all
I'm
right.
sorry, I'm just getting tired.
No, I understand. You have literally been on all day, and I had to work before I came, but I had a bit of a rest bit because Bill didn't do a show this week. But yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up real quick. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. I want to thank Culture Casino for sending some people over here. Um, Tom for once again taking the time to come on.
Thanks for having me, it's fun as
All right.
always. Sorry I wasn't as
No, no, no.
energetic as I
That's
could normally be, but,
no. Yeah, I'm starting to wind down a bit too. I think I actually passed out for a few minutes there during Geeky Geezers, which I hate doing because I actually mod that show. But um, yeah. Hold on. There's some people. Yeah, okay. I'm just looking at the chat. I'm sorry. All right. Yeah. All righty. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat. Hit the like, share the link, say hello in the comments, and all that good stuff. And hello, Jonah Hex. You're joining us right at the end here. And thank you again, Tom, for coming on. Do you have any last words before we wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good. Thanks for having me again. It was fun
You're
chit
welcome. Thank
chatting.
you.
I'm sure we can do it again soon.
Indeed. All right. So, from HQ, good night, take care, stay strong, because this is how we win.